here for the Sewing Connection, Series 15, Program 11. I'm so busy with my own thing all the time, I've never sat in on anyone else's classes. But this year, my curiosity got the better of me, and I went to a wearable art festival in Santa Fe. Surrounded by all those talented people, a little of that creativity is bound to rub off. I've been touched by such joyful inspiration, my life will never be the same. Let me show you a small sample. A Happening in the Plaza is the name of this painting, and it represents to me what goes on at such a festival. Now, what that plaza is that you see in the painting is right in the heart of Santa Fe. And it's surrounded by wonderful shops, wearable art places all over. There is so much creative energy going on in that city that I've never seen so much concentrated in one spot before. And it does change your outlook a little bit. Now, as I went into one of those shops, I saw the scarf that I'm wearing, and I thought, I have never in all my life worn anything like that. But why not? It goes with half the things in my wardrobe, probably. The colors do. And so loosen up a little bit. Get something different in your life for a change. And loosen up a little bit maybe on your sewing. Now, what I loved about being there is that everybody has something to offer everybody else. The people at this festival who were there, and this isn't the kind of a festival where there are thousands of people there. This was a small one. It was a several-day class situation where people are in one class for many days, and there are only about 20 people in a class. So it's hands-on and you're doing things. It's that type of festival that this was. And I noticed that everybody was getting together with everyone else and looking over someone else's shoulder and say, oh, I love what you're doing. I think I'll try that. Or why don't you try this? And some of that makes it fun because when you have a little more input, it loosens up your thinking and you do things differently. In one of the wearable art shops, I saw a wonderful jacket that had raw edges of all things. Well, here I am, a former tailoring professor who always had those perfect hard-finished edges. And suddenly I think, yeah, I can do that. I'm going to make something maybe with those raw edges and just see how I feel about it. So do participate in something. Look around, see what other people are doing. And I'd like you to look at what some of the models are wearing. Now, most of these things that you'll be seeing are from people that I met there in Santa Fe at this festival. And let's see what they all look like. This first one is from Dewey Cornet, and she's from Lafayette, Louisiana. And this jacket is in red and black. It's all pieced, and it has Indonesian faces on it, on a panel on the back, and also some of the print fabrics. Now, one thing you'll find in the sewing world, and especially in the wearable art things right now, and among the quilters, are a lot of ethnic fabrics. So we'll see several of these. And this one's pieced and beaded, and notice how even the buttons have faces on, the same as that Java panel on the back that has the faces on it. So this is something that I wouldn't have thought of making before until I saw Dewey's and thought, you know, that's kind of fun. I have some fabrics kind of like that, or I can get some more to go with them. And I think I just might do that. There's another one here then by Dewey also. And this one is a little similar maybe in feeling in that it is also fabric from Indonesia, batik in this case, the elephants are. But notice how this one, and it's pretty browns and blacks, also has a big combination of fabrics. Notice how in between the various pieces of fabric there is a little piping or there is a row of beading. There's something to join the two together, to put a little fence there, to put a little definition to it, and it makes it look complete. It makes it look professional. So a lot of piping is being used, I find, in all of these things. And let's see what else is there. The next one is a vest that looks really pretty, and this one is by Donna Brown, and she's from Fair Oaks, California. And again, some ethnic fabrics there. This one, I think, was called Serengeti Paradise, and it does have several African fabrics, and it's just in really pretty warm browns and oranges and blacks. And look at all the piecing. Some of that on the back of it is done vertically in strips. Some of it is done in little checkerboard designs. There are those pretty leaves with the orange, what look almost like something growing on those trees, like nuts of some sort. and a lot of piping, not only used as piping, but used as little tubes to swing here and there. Very pretty. The buttons go with it. Everything is lovely. And look at the lining, and she has a little something written about the whole thing on the inside of the vest, which she's put on the lining. And I notice a lot of these wearable artists do that. They have pretty labels. They have things in the lining that are as pretty as the outside, even though they aren't meant to be reversibles. And notice the buttonholes. I'm going to show you how to make those in a little bit, because they're very interesting, and I hadn't seen these done before. So, okay, let's see the next one. And it is something by Rachel Clark. Now, Rachel Clark is from Santa Ana, California, and she was teaching at this festival. And naturally, as this shows, she was teaching a lot of pieces, and what she says is, don't look at this as 50 separate pieces of fabric separated into groups, because it will make some logical sense. And not being a quilter, I hadn't thought of it in those terms before, but this one is separated into, up at the top, it's everything that has to do with the air. It's birds flying, so it's air up on top, and it's land in the middle. There are land animals there. And down on the bottom there are sea animals. So this is air, land, and sea. So it does all of a sudden make some sense, and I can see why she has split those fabrics and divided them the way she has. These are a lot of fabrics that she had been saving, a lot of batiks, a lot of various types. She had been saving for a long time, and she calls this Elemental Blues. This is kind of fun, too, in that I notice these wearable artists do name all their things. And this makes it fun. Do you name your things? Well, I hadn't so far, but maybe it's, oh, the old blue thing in the corner of the closet, or I'll give it a better name from here on, I think. Now, this one is spectacular. And with good reason. It has been modeled in the Fairfield Fashion Show. This is by Virginia Avery, who also was an instructor there. And Virginia is a happening in herself, I'll tell you. She has seen most decades of this century, and it certainly will never slow her down because she travels constantly. I just caught her briefly in Santa Fe in between trips to Europe and trips to other parts of the world. So she is on the go all the time, and with good reason. She encourages a lot of creativity. And this is what it is with any of these festivals. They encourage so much from you. And you do not only get inspired by everyone else, but also you get encouraged to do things to bring out the best in you, things you didn't even know were there. Now notice on this how she has these wonderful balloon sleeves, and picture how you might make these. Not only can you use a very basic, this jacket is enormous, it's meant to flare out and be really big, but notice how as the arms held out, that sleeve is kind of circular, starting at the center front, and it just circles up to the edge of it, and then that circle would come back down as it touches your arm at the bottom of it. Notice how many fabrics she has here in these beautiful flowers all over, or the impression of flowers. She calls it Manhattan Sunset. And when the sun sets in Manhattan, by the way, Virginia plays with the jazz band. And so she does have fun with not only what she makes, but the way she lives. It shows in her work. Here's another one that is strictly fun. Now look at all the different pieces with Virginia's outfits, both the last one and this one. A lot of bags and hats. And in fact, she has a hat book, and she has several books on her wearable art. But this one is so neat in that, and she has entitled this, by the way, Matisse Goes to Bangkok, which is fun. And this is the thing with these wearable artists. They put fun in their sewing. You can tell it's never drudgery. It's always fun. I have the feeling they smile the whole time they're doing this. And she has several fabrics here. Mainly the thing is yellow. The jacket is yellow, but look at the kind of fish scale sleeves. And aren't they fun? Every one of these circles are faced with a different color on the back of them. And then there are some little beads and some shisha mirrors, and those are definitely Matisse figures that you see back and front. And the skirt is also rather spectacular with the fishtail hem to go with the fish scales on the sleeve. And the figure on the very back of it I see is a mermaid. So it all ties together. You have to think sometime about what this artist had in mind as they were creating this whole ensemble that's all put together there. Well, if you thought that was a little wild, and if that was a little far out, and something that you think, could I really do that? Here's the reverse. because everything is in the plaza. And here's one by June Grieg, and she's from St. Louis. And now, isn't this calm? Now, this is some wearable art too, but of a very reserved nature. And so if this is more to your liking, that is also in the sewing world, and it's possible to do something all this reserved. She's done something very interesting here on this olive silk coat. And what it is down at the bottom is a really wide trim that she bought. It was about 18 inches wide, and then she's cut off part of it. The bigger part of it goes around the bottom of the coat, and then the smaller part that she cut off going up and down so that it looks like buildings. It's a cityscape is what it is. And so the bigger part of this is on the coat, but the smaller part is on the sleeve. Now think about this when you're doing something similar. Think about scale. On smaller parts of that garment, you would do things in a smaller scale. On larger parts of that garment, you would do things in a larger scale. This artist is very conscious of that. You have seen previously some of her things, and I've noticed also that she has perhaps smaller scale on things up near the top, near the shoulder, and if they are flared, then down in the lower area, it's a larger scale, and this is good. It shows a lot of thought. It's what makes a successful outfit, the way you have put it together just very nicely. So, okay, June, we like that outfit. Let's see, June's outfit also, I just might mention the fact that notice that those windows were lighted. She has little other colors of fabric poked in some of the openings so that it looks like those city buildings do have lights on. Here are 3 of them that are the very same pattern. They're all done by Mary Pokorny of Dallas, Texas. And these 3 were done perhaps at the same time or in close proximity to each other. And she has used 3 completely different fabrications. One of them is all corduroy with some trims winding around on it. So these dark corduroys, it looks kind of like the holiday season perhaps. And it might be a daytime thing, whatever, but anyway. It's in darker colors. She has painted the white and black one then with the gold. And all of this is painted, and this is where I saw her in a class on dyeing and painting is where I met Mary. But notice also on this black and white one, she has some pleating and she has some cords that are going back and forth within the pleating. So an interesting variation of the very same jacket. Or here's a third one, and this is made with pastel upholstery fabrics of various sorts. And again, you'd never know that all 3 of these were the same jacket. They are all broken and cut up in the very same places, but they have 3 separate distinct flavors because of the fabrics and the colors used in them. Now, anytime you want to break up patterns in various ways, the only thing you have to do is cut the lines wherever you want them. And it's not a bad idea to hold that pattern or some fabric or whatever in front of you, in front of the mirror, to see exactly where these lines are going to go if you break them up, because they could be on awkward parts of your body, and you want to make sure they look as nice as they possibly can. So do make sure you know where those lines are going. And anytime you do cut them up, then it's just a matter of, after you've cut up that basic pattern or a duplicate of it, I'll never cut up my sacred basics, really. After you've cut a duplicate, then you just add seam allowances to either side of it and maybe make notches before you cut it apart so that you know how they fit back together again. And you can do that very easily. Here are a couple more, and these are by the same person, Kathy Engelmeyer of St. Anne, Missouri, and again using some ethnic prints in the brown and black jacket, which she has pieced very nicely. Some of these are just used flat. Others of them are crinkled and fused to a backing. And then there are pretty sparkly cords and stitching going around here and there. And the whole thing is piped to tie it all together. And it's also piped in between each of the fabrics with this striped fabric so that it has a little definition because of that. The other one of hers is this vest. And isn't it pretty with the peacock feathers, or the impression anyway of peacocks? And this is just kind of with a formal look, maybe in the stripes going up and down, but a whole lot of different fabrics. Now those stripes aren't necessarily straight. Some of them waver a little bit to make them more interesting. They certainly are different sizes to make them more interesting. And each one is bordered. At first when I looked at that, I thought, is that some sort of a braid that has a little gold edge on each side? And no, it's not. It's a little gold cord that she has just couched on to separate everything, and that's kind of a pretty idea. Notice also as she has these circular peacock feathers covering here or there, just arranged wherever she decided it would be a good place to put them. She has those then also bordered with the little gold trim, and the whole outfit makes a coordinated whole that is very nice. Notice also how this is tied together instead of being buttoned anywhere. There's a little tie. And as it's being untied, look at the pretty lining that's in it, because even though you're not going to wear it inside out, even though you're not going to take that vest off probably, it is nice to know. It just feels more special when you know that it has a very pretty lining in, and this makes it really super. Here's something that is a collaboration of two people. And well, this one actually is one person. It's just so much is happening on it. It looks like it might be two people perhaps. But this is Virginia Simpson, and this is, she's from Sacramento, California. And isn't this wild? Now, contrast this with the very staid, reserved peacocks in the last vest. This one's wild. Let's see the back of that one. And what it is a big frog dance. So it's rain and it's frogs, and they are having a ball. Nobody is going to love that rain more than them. And notice how they have shadows in back of them. All those frogs, by the way, are there individually. Virginia put those on. They're all made of ultra suede. The rest of it is print fabrics of various sorts. But she did a lot of collecting there to get all those frogs, the little pins and the beads. Everything is frogs, and it's a very joyous occasion when there's rain in Sacramento, is what it looks like here. Then the next one we have is a collaboration of two people, and this one is by Carol Bryant and Jeanette Oglensky, and they're both from Dallas, Texas. And one of them paints. That lining is a silk painting by Jeanette, and Carol is the one then who sews and puts it all together. And I have a feeling that at least one of them was in Virginia Avery's class, because I see a couple of techniques there that Virginia was showing in her class. One of them is the triple piping that's on that vest, and the other is on the back of it, the flying geese. Now, I think that it's interesting the way everybody does their thing in a different way. Virginia was teaching those straight lines of flying geese in her class. When I was in Rachel Clark's class then, as I was walking around and seeing what everybody's doing, I noticed that Rachel was teaching her flying geese all running or all flying in a curve instead of straight. So everyone has their own variations, and this makes it very interesting and gives you some pretty influences that you might pick up also. Then we have the last two that we're going to see. And you have already seen one of these back in Series 14, and you will see the other one in the next program that we're going to have. But what I thought was so interesting about these as I was looking at them, the one is by Kathy Carroll, and that's the one that's called Simba, and it has all the shag on the shoulders. And the other one is by Beverly Ralph of Leavenworth, Kansas. And why I put these together, even though they have nothing to do with each other, is the fact that they have chosen the same fabric. Notice that jungle fabric, and it's used in completely different ways on the two jackets. I'm sure, I don't know if these two people know each other or not. I'm sure that they didn't get together to compare things as they were doing these, but there's a label inside of Kathy's that says it all for me. I don't know what the label means, something to her, not to me, but the label in back of it says, "Talk to me." And I thought that struck me funny, or that told me, hey, this is something that I always promote. That label, that "Talk to me," is what happened with these fabrics, because as sewers look at fabrics, that fabric speaks to each of them in different ways. It tells them completely different things, and this is why we see so much diversity in sewing, whether it's the sewers or the quilters or the wearable artists. They all influence each other, and this is really good. What I learned from these wearable artists and from the quilters is use a lot of fabrics together, because it's fun to do it that way. Don't ever worry if you have an accident and need to patch over something. So what? Put another fabric. It'll go beautifully, and it'll probably turn out to be a better outfit in the long run. From the wearable artists, I just really learned to loosen up a little bit and do some things that you haven't done before. Give it a stretch and see what you can pull out of your mind that hadn't previously surfaced. So what's happening in the plaza? Everything's happening there. The whole picture of sewing is changing a lot, and people are doing a lot more interesting, fun things. So it isn't that you have to do this or that just because that happens to be the current fad. It's just the fact that there are these things available and you might want to give them a look. Well, what this Wearable Art Festival was, this was all a wonderful gathering in Santa Fe from Rosemary Ponte. And she has some gorgeous things of her own, and I'm sorry we didn't have any of her things, but you'll see something on her as we see a little picture from that Wearable Art Festival. So we're going to just show you a little bit of what goes on at one of these, because I'd like you all to think about doing something of this sort. Now, there are 4 classes going on at Rosemary's Festival, and one of them was painting, and this is Carol Estes doing a little painting, instructing how to do it. And then after she instructed some of her methods, which she would do day by day, everyone else was instructing everyone else because they all had painting or dyeing methods of their own to contribute. And here I learned about shibori and about all sorts of different dye methods which I had never seen done before. It fascinated me so much that I've never done any of it, but I will be taking a painting class just because I don't know how to do it, and I'd like to know. So I'll be taking one this year. Here we see another class, and this is Virginia's, and she's instructing how to do something or other. And you can see how everybody is leaning over and helping each other and having fun. Everybody is chattering and laughing, and they are just really a good time. Here's a class that was done by Sherry Dawn Roberts, where she does a lot of thread painting, and she was showing them different ways of doing this thread painting and using a lot of different threads and cords. And then, of course, here's Rachel Clark instructing and showing how you don't be afraid, put those things together, categorize them, and see what fun things you can do with them. Well, I would like to really urge you to go to one of these because they're not only happening in Santa Fe. I'm certainly not advertising Rosemary's because she probably hasn't booked far into the future. I don't know. But they're also happening in Montana and Michigan and Maine and every place else across the nation. So check into them. You see them announced in all the sewing publications, and if you'd like to go to one, there's no time like this year to do it and see what's happening. I'd like to show you a couple more things here on the table. For one thing, I have some wonderful scarves here that were painted by Carol Estes. And she likes butterflies, obviously. So look at those gorgeous butterflies. I would like to know how to paint these. I'll know how next year. I'll find out. But they are in just wonderful colors, and it really brings out everything in an outfit. What I have over here is just a couple of books from Virginia because, of course, all of these instructors that you find anywhere in the country instructing are well known internationally, most of them. And so they all have probably books, videos. Here's a pattern from Rachel Clark. So all of these things are available. What I also noticed, though, from all these wearable artists is that they have wonderful labels in their clothes. So I thought, yeah, we can do that. Now, I've always had kind of boring labels, maybe. I just have kind of standard labels here. I have a bunch of them, which I put in things. But maybe I can do better than that. Maybe I can have some fun with them. How about taking my standard label, and this is a suggestion from Donna Salyers with her leathers, how about sewing that label onto a piece of leather and maybe pinking around the outside of it? Just the way you very often see animal skins done, even though this is synthetic leather. And so how about sewing that in? Maybe put a decorative stitch around the edge and see what that looks like. So here I've done a label inside this vest, and what I've done here is program my name into the machine, and I've written it out here in script and put this label on with some decorative stitching instead of the usual just invisibly stitching it on. And you know that makes that garment a little bit more special inside than it used to be just because I put that pretty label in. Now, I never plan to take this vest off and wear it inside out, but it does feel more important because it has something fun inside it. Or I might also just do some sort of a pretty little picture. I think I might like a butterfly sitting on top of Cheryl, and maybe I would just like to do that and scan it in on a scanner and come out with the very same color labels, or in all colors perhaps do them. So there is a whole lot you can do if you just look at what everybody else is doing instead of being confined in your own sewing room and just doing your thing all the time. I said I might show you a buttonhole. Well, here it is very quickly that we saw on Donna Brown's outfit. It just starts out as a couple of pieces of fabric that are then sewn together and pressed open and then pressed closed so that a little bit shows on one side. And then a buttonhole is made in there, just a machine buttonhole. And then it's folded down, and so what it looks like on the outside is instead a bound buttonhole. So just to show you a little process that we saw on one of those wearable artists, just something you can quickly take and make as your own is there. Now something else that we saw is triple piping, and let me quickly show you how that's done from Virginia Avery. She said triple piping is of course kind of pretty, but you want to worry about the bulk. So what you do is put some yarn or cord inside one of them and sew it together. Use a piping foot, use a zipper foot, get up close to it. Put the second one there and lay the yarn in and sew it, but stagger the seams. Make one real short and one longer so you don't have bulk all in one place. Snug them up close to each other. Put the third piece of fabric there. Put also a yarn inside of there and then sew that up close. And you have to decide, depending on how thick it is or how many you have here, what kind of a foot's going to do the job best. But isn't that kind of a pretty little addition that you might put around the edge of something or separating some fabrics? So let's do some of this fun thing. If you can get to a gathering of creative people such as this, I certainly urge you to do so. It adds another dimension to your capabilities, not to mention the smile on your face. Fabrics can also acquire another dimension as they combine and split and open up. Join me next time for Silk Bloomers.